Welcome to the Excerpt Talks, an interview series about growing in the WordPress ecosystem through connection, collaboration, and creation. My name is Lawrence Ladomri. I'm marketing specialist at WPBakery, the page builder powering close to 6 million websites, and a brand most in the WordPress ecosystem knows well. Our success over the year has been thanks to our incredible partners, theme authors, agencies, and add-on developers, who've built amazing products on top of WPBakery. That's why we're launching this series, to spotlight partnerships and inspire more collaboration in the WordPress space. With economic uncertainties and AI reshaping the way we work together, the need to connect, support, and grow together has never been more important. In our first episode of the Excerpt Talks, we spoke to Tom Fanelli, CEO and co-founder of Convesio, and a bit of a rare occurrence in the industry, as somebody with very strong business and technical skills. So you can talk to him about sales and marketing, but also container technology. We had a really interesting talk. These are some of the highlights from our discussion that reveal valuable insights and lessons to consider. Targeting the unserved middle, diversifying beyond a single offering, building recurring and passive revenue, going where competitors won't, lowering barriers for clients and partners, partnering for mutual success, anticipating market shifts, and thinking like an ecosystem. Okay, so in our first episode of the Excerpt Talks, we're talking to Tom Fanelli. He's the CEO and co-founder of Convesio, a business that now is much more than a hosting platform, but I'll let Tom explain what Convesio is and who it's for. I should also share that I did work for Convesio for a couple of years, and this was before COVID, so I do know Tom quite well, and the brand, of course. But as I mentioned, Convesio has changed, and I'm quite keen to discuss how it has changed. I'll kick off with an interesting fact, not quite related to what we'll be talking about, but interesting nevertheless. Convesio originally raised $1 million from an equity funding exercise.
Equity crowdfunding, yes.
Exactly. So there were 800 people that invested in Convesio at the very start, before you even had a product. And I don't think that's a common way for business, particularly in the WordPress ecosystem, that raise funds that way.
Yeah, that is. And thanks for having me, Lawrence. It's great to reconnect with you. I'm always reminded, I love how you say my last name with that Italian accent. It
Panelli.
reminds me of home, you know? So we did start in a bit of an unconventional way. I mean, we bootstrapped ourselves for the initial MVP, and then decided we wanted to get a little bit more serious about it. And we went out to raise an equity crowdfunding round, which at the time had only existed the ability to do that for maybe a handful of years, maybe 3 to 6 years. And it was really part of the Jobs Act that Obama enacted, where he allowed this notion of unaccredited investors to be able to invest small amounts of money into a startup. And that gave birth of platforms similar to like what a Kickstarter would be, but you actually get an equity in the company. You're not just pre-buying a product that they're building and sort of pre-funding it. And so we felt as though it was a bit more of a legitimate way. And then the other thing that I loved was to bring people along in the community. We've all watched in the WordPress space as, you know, hosting companies have grown to be behemoths, and they have huge exits and go public and all of that type of stuff. And I love the idea of being able to bring along with me some of the community of WordPress. And I thought, wouldn't it be an awesome story if this was like a community backed company instead of just a, you know, venture backed one, or something that was bootstrapped, and that the community could share in the success of Convesio when we have a meaningful exit. So that was really kind of the start of what we were doing. And as luck would have it, during that time, we launched our crowdfunding campaign. And I think a week or two later, WP Engine announced that they were acquiring Flywheel. And that gave us a ton of rocket fuel, if you will. And I think in 1 week we raised $600,000 or $700,000. So it was an exciting start.
And I think I invested $100 as well. So at some
Awesome.
point, I'm
Well, we're
I'm
glad to
hoping
have
that
you. I'm sure it's going to turn into millions. So,
no
um,
doubt.
so the idea of what we started as though was we really, I mean, you know this, having worked with me, like part of my DNA is like I love to innovate, right? And so
Mm.
I had kind of become just a little bothered by the fact that much of the hosting space was the same products and services in different data centers with different twists to them, but there was nothing really super innovative. In fact, just a shout out, I mean, the two companies that were really probably the most innovative at the time was Pagely and Pantheon. And at the time, Pantheon only worked on Drupal, and they had a true containerized system, but not for WordPress. And so in the early days, and so I was kind of like, is there a way we can rethink hosting WordPress in a completely scalable manner that addresses performance and scaling and all that kind of stuff? And that's what gave birth to what we became. And one of the things that was interesting is I use this analogy. We kind of built a Ferrari, and we learned very quickly the market wanted, much of the market wanted kind of a better Toyota than what they had, right? And maybe not a Ferrari. And so that learning over the first couple of years of us being in market led us to shift really towards what we think of as the mid market. And the real superpower of scaling that we created led us to understand that e commerce sites, and we define that very broadly at Convesio, sites like your typical e com stores, WooCommerce, you might think of, but LearnDash, MemberPress, publishers selling large subscriptions. These were and what I would call mission critical sites, where maybe the site is the product, if you will. That led us to really gravitate towards that mid market, which honestly, the set of solutions becomes much more narrow. The entry level market is extremely crowded with solutions, and there's very entrenched sort of, I'm going to build my own infrastructure on Google Cloud or AWS with DevOps engineers at the enterprise level. But that mid market, the amount of solutions that are there becomes actually quite sparse. And we found success focusing on this mid market segment of our customers. And that really led us to this idea that everyone was transacting online, and we got into payments. And, since everyone's transacting online, they all have abandoned carts, and all got checkout optimization problems, and they've all got the need to want to get more of their visitors to transact and become customers. And so we had the opportunity to acquire a marketing automation solution. And so today, when we think of Convesio, it's host, convert, and pay, all of which are products. Our hosting platform, our convert platform, which we acquired, used to be called Grammatic, and then our payments platform, which we built in house, which allows customers to transact, and it's a competitor to Stripe.
So that's actually quite an interesting evolution. And going back to the analogy, um, I think you did build a Ferrari, but you also built a Ferrari that could sort of downgrade to a Toyota when needed. So you were paying Toyota prices until you did need to race, and you needed all the power. And that's your auto scaling there, right?
Yeah.
And that kind of really set you apart at the time. Even now, I don't think there are many hosting companies that are specifically positioned as scalable hosting providers. Um, but going back to sort of the Convesio journey, I think originally you were serving agencies, and then you broadened your focus to more segments for these mission critical use cases, as you're saying. But now you are much more focused on e-commerce, right? So that's you really narrowed back into e-commerce, and then broaden your offering with pay and convert. This is a fairly unique um, approach. I think I haven't seen any other hosting provider start offering. Do you think that maybe we will? Do you think maybe hosting providers, platforms, infrastructure companies are going to broaden their offerings. And we've
Yeah.
seen them adopt services more and more, uh, but not what you've done.
Yeah. Well, I think we like to think about our customers in the sense of how can we sell the trifecta, right? So the trifecta is a client who's interested in all three products. And this is a case where, our pitch about this is if you look at every statistic known, e-commerce is significantly harder today than it was 10 years ago. There's been a 300% increase in ADA accessibility lawsuits. The number one target for accessibility lawsuits is e-commerce sites. Because if you're denying a disabled individual the ability to have a good or service, that becomes a problem, right? And so they are first on the targeting list for that. Um, you know, Cost to acquire customers is just skyrocketing. Chargebacks and fraud up to record levels. Cybersecurity, more complicated than ever before. PCI compliance, compliance in specialty industries like nutraceuticals, HIPAA compliance. These are all really, really hard things. And what they do is they make the burden for a small business owner or a store owner to go find experts and solutions for all of these different things. It's one of the biggest barriers to successfully running an e-commerce store. And I think we've all seen the stats. I think like the average number of plugins or add-ons that a Shopify store uses is like 12 or 15. It's like really high. And so you just can't run a site anymore with just a store. You need a solution set supported by a team of experts that are experienced in all these areas. And that's really what we're trying to become is we're trying to focus on the use case of commerce. And by the way, not just WordPress and WooCommerce. We're partnered with BigCommerce. We host multiple workloads like Laravel has some commerce solutions. There's great open source solutions out there like Medusa and some others. And so when we think about this, and people are doing headless commerce, that's another big thing that's a big deal. Commerce can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And it's not just a shopping cart and checkout and ship you a product. It could be memberships, courses for online learning. Like I said, our definition of commerce isn't what you think about when you think of like Shopify, where it's like a store, you go and you buy something and they ship it to you. In fact, I would argue that that's actually the most competitive space because I do feel like we're losing a bit of ground to Shopify in the WooCommerce area. But we're firmly entrenched in the WordPress ecosystem on LearnDash, MemberPress, Lifter LMS. This and the online education space is blowing up. So it's not to say that things are dire when it comes to e-commerce with WooCommerce and what Shopify is doing, but Shopify is crushing it. And so we have a broader use case than what Shopify has. And this is an interesting little piece of news. Our Convert product actually has a Shopify integration. And so we see ourselves as less platform. We're more platform agnostic than we want to just help merchants succeed. And I think that whether they're on Shopify, whether they're on another open source system, in about another 45 to 60 days, we'll probably have our Convert integration to Shopify live on the Shopify marketplace. And so we'll start working with Shopify merchants on the Convert product, and maybe eventually we'll get our payments product into the Shopify ecosystem as well. And so it's really our focus is helping merchants be successful in all shapes and sizes on whatever platform that they're on.
So is the lesson here, let's say, for a smaller WordPress product business or agency to really think a little bit more broadly than product, which what there's just typically just focused on, and explore other opportunities in terms of a portfolio where it makes sense, where there is alignment, and even beyond the WordPress ecosystem. And just to tie this to the next question are these kind of discussions that you're having with your partners now that come to you perhaps for the technology, but end up having a lot of of your insights shared on Slack, because I know that you do a lot of your conversations on Slack.
That's right. If I could just figure out how to get all my Slack information into AI, I'm pretty confident I can clone myself. So,
It's going to
um,
happen, Tom.
yeah, I'm sure it is. Yeah. So, here's the interesting thing. I think in terms of product companies, you sort of have to have an eye to the future, right? You sort of have to be, you do have to be firmly entrenched in what's going to move the needle, grow the company today, right? But you also have to look into the future. And I feel like e-commerce is one of those spaces where, it's not, I liken it a little bit to compliance, privacy, accessibility. It's, it's really just getting started. It's really just getting started. And I think that we're starting to see more and more merchants grow up into this mid market. There's still a lot of what we call dreamers. And I would say that's what Shopify, they market heavily to those dreamers, right? The people like get online, start selling, and you'll have the business of your dreams, right? Um, Maybe they're doing nothing, no revenue at the moment. There's a lot of people graduating, though, from those dreamers into the mid market with more substantial businesses, and they have more substantial needs. I think being able to spot that trend in your industry and prepare to service those people when they, now,
Mm.
the timing is really important because if you're too early, there's not enough of a mid market base, right? So in our case, we sort of stumbled on this and it evolved with us. It was almost like a happy timing, right? But I think it's only going to get more and more. And I think you've got to be able to spot trends like that in whatever your particular niche or market is. Um, and so, yeah, I mean that's sort of what happened in our case. I do think also AI is changing things really rapidly. And so if you're a small WordPress product company or a small WordPress developer, one of the areas you can almost certainly innovate and do things disruptive is with AI. But you've got to be ready to go at breakneck speeds because I don't know if you've followed this, but there's this new notion of this. I think it's 996, right? The new work week is what they're calling it, and
Mm.
it's a methodology that people have labeled abusive that's come out of China, but a lot of AI startups are starting to follow it, which is 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week. And what I'm hearing from many of the people that I'm connected with back in the Bay Area and in startup worlds is everyone's working weekends in this space. It is so fast, things are evolving. So you've got to be ready and realize that if you jump into AI, it's a highly competitive space, but I think it's a very greenfield open space. Innovation, everything's moving. There's a level playing field because when you hear about the next new thing, I'm hearing about it at the same time. No one has this sort of entrenched advantage of saying, like, I've been in the space for 10 years, right? It's all so new and so fresh every day. There's new announcements coming out, changing things radically.
That's interesting and a little bit scary as well. And I think most of us are trying to predict the future in that respect as everything evolves at the speed of light
Right.
around us. But in terms of your partner program at Convesio, I mean, who is it for primarily, and what are the ultimate benefits? Beyond the numbers, effectively.
Yeah. So, you had mentioned that we sort of started with agencies and then we did this pivot to direct brands. And I would say, like, the DNA of Convesio is our heart's very much with agencies. I ran my own agency for 7 years. Um, and I totally get that. And one of the things when we introduced payments, right? I feel like there's been a bit of a taking advantage of a little bit, I'll call it, in the payment space because you have companies like Stripe out there that have really replaced the they have this great do it yourself sign up and go platform. And if you're, as gray haired as I am, back in the day, that didn't used to be that way. It used to be a pain to get a merchant account, right? You had to jump through all these hoops and wait weeks and all sorts of stuff. Well, in that process, there was an organization making money off of the sales process of you signing up. Stripe sort of cut them out. And what they did was they made such a great platform with all these plugins and all that, that they sort of have leveraged unknowingly agencies who are building the sites, setting up the stores. They're the ones implementing Stripe, but you know what? They're not getting anything
Mhm.
for it. They're getting $0. So good for Stripe. They cut out a huge cost segment in there because they built a bunch of do it yourself tools. But then the agencies who are actually functioning as the sales rep for them aren't getting any revenue back. And so we really wanted to make a passive, highly profitable revenue stream for agencies that they could implement that was highly sticky. And so, in the agency grind, if you're lucky, you might have low double digit net profit margins at the end of the year. Many of the very successful agencies I know are at 15% net profit. And, if you've got $1 million agency, that's 150 grand a year that you might be profiting. Or if you've got, half that, if you're at 500K, we wanted to figure out, could we meaningfully move that by introducing payments? And instead of people recommending Stripe, they would recommend Convesio Pay and get a cut of the payment fees. And so we really built that into the partner program. We extended that same thinking with Convert. We had that same thinking on hosting, of course, where we offer ongoing revenue share for the life of the client. And really, it's about building a highly net profit revenue stream that's recurring and completely passive for agencies. And so if the agency owner wants to go on the beach, they'll still be getting their check every month. And so that's really kind of what we did, and who we're gearing our partner program for.
That's quite interesting. Again, it's not something that uh, is seen often out there. Actually, I can't think, particularly of a hosting provider doing this across this extended offering like you have. Um, I've got a
Well,
question
and
about.
I will tell you one thing to interject there. It's not easy, and here's why.
Mm,
This is in hindsight, it was a good decision, but it wasn't the easy path. So, for Convesio Pay, we built a ton of enterprise payments infrastructure. We have a shared risk model with our PSP, our payment solution provider on the back end, which today we use Adyen. We just launched crypto, by the way, so now you can process crypto payments. But we did not just do like a Stripe integration, right?
yeah.
Where, that's the easy route. The problem is if you just go that easy route, you don't have any margins to pay anyone anything because Stripe
Mm,
doesn't give anyone much of anything. And so we took on the burden of building a lot of payments infrastructure, a lot of risk processes. And we went out and, quite frankly, probably invested, I don't know, close to $1 million building this payments infrastructure. And that is what enables us to be able to unlock the revenue shares that we can
mm.
to agencies on payments.
Yeah, that makes sense. I I want to ask you about your affiliate program because I worked on it when I was at Convesio, and at the time it didn't really work for us. It was difficult to get traction. It was actually difficult to kind of explain Convesio to a lot of these affiliates. Has that changed? Have you been able to make the affiliate program work for you?
We haven't, we have really been focused, well, I would say in short, not to scale. Okay. And the reason why our best affiliates are these agencies that host with us that are like, I want to start deploying payments or convert into my customer base. And so these are not pure play affiliate partners. When you think of an affiliate partner,
Mm,
they're like lead aggregation to you. And I honestly think our product doesn't lend itself well to this. And I'll tell you why. We are very much a considered purchase because we're not at the entry level of the market. So if you want to convert the most amount of units that you can, if you're a blogger and you're going to write a blog article on how to get started with, your own website, you are going to send them to the Bluehosts of the world for the 99 cent a month hosting, or GoDaddies, right? You're not going to send them to Convesio where it might be $150 a month to start. And if you did, the conversion rate on that is probably going to be so low. And
Mm.
so I don't think that our messaging really works for the pure, when you think of the pure like affiliate model. I will say where it works great is when we win over these agencies and they're like, whoa, I can sell more of Convesio's products to our customers and I can increase the amount of revenue that I'm making from our partnership. That's where it works really well. And especially when they're used to like working with all the white glove support that we have. So like,
Yeah.
when they come to us and they're like, hey, we have a membership site. We want to move to Convesio Pay. Like, we do the token migrations for you. We white glove handle that. We tell you exactly what needs to happen between Stripe and us to get your tokens migrated so your subscriptions run seamlessly. We migrate all your subscriptions to use our checkout method. So we do a lot of stuff to help people have a really seamless experience when they're moving their payment processor from one to us.
So when you speak to agencies and your partners, are you really more talking in terms of rev share than, affiliate? And I'm being semantic here. I'm just curious to know what the language is when you speak to them.
I don't use that language, rev share, but I like it. So I might steal that. Um, because I do really think that's really what it is, because um, we're really partnered together. It's not like when you get on Convesio and you're an agency, you still own all your customers, right? And you want your customers to be successful. And when you bring Convesio into the mix, whether the customer knows it or you're reselling our hosting maybe, or they're going to bring you in, as most people tell people they're working with Convesio. It's usually like a boost to them because we are
Yeah.
positioned as a premium provider. So it actually helps the agency, justify that they've got a premium solution. But it's really very much of a partnership where we're actually working in tandem with the client, with the agency, to make sure that because we both have ongoing revenue. If the thing goes sideways, we lose revenue, the agency lose revenue and
Mm.
faith. So we very much work together to make sure our agencies and their customers have really good hands-on experience, or good experience, and then we share in the revenue of that. So it really is like a rev share model.
So for the next question, Tom, I'm going to skip it. I'm going to skip a couple of questions because I think this is a really good segue in actually showing what that model can look like. Also, you've talked about the payment solution, so that was one of the questions. What I'm going to do now is attempt to share my screen. Okay, I trust that you can see this slide.
Perfect.
So what we've done here is put together an example of what one single agency that is using your pay product, your convert product, and hosting can potentially generate each month. And the scenario here is that they are helping an online store, a WooCommerce store, that is generating about $250,000 a month in terms of revenue through about 1,000 transactions. So, if you don't mind, you mind going through these numbers and
Yeah.
explain
Yeah,
what
for
they are?
sure. So, our rack rate on payment processing is same as Stripe's, 2.9% and 30 cents a transaction. And so a typical merchant that's doing 250,000 a month, they'll be paying somewhere in the neighborhood of 72.50 uh, in um, in payment processing fees. Now, the bulk of those fees go to the credit card and
Mm.
interchange and the bank. But what's left over, we split with the agency. And so if we think about this from the agency's perspective, and there's variance on this, but think of it as like 20 basis points. So 0.20% is what an agency can make. Now, this depends on a variety of factors, and not to get too far off into this, but you know, if you have a business to business site, you might earn less than this because business credit cards are very high fees. So there's much less left over after the split. But if you have a customer that's doing a lot of debit card transactions, maybe the rate will be higher than that because they have very low fees for debit cards. And then, by the way, we just introduced our new cryptocurrency solution, and that has very high rev share fees as well. So that's a great alternative method. And by the way, that's only one. The other part to this is you actually have the opportunity to earn much more than this. The $500 example here, if you're in highly regulated industries, because we do a lot of stuff with like peptides and nutraceuticals. And those are regulated industries where the transaction percentage fees are not 2.9%, but they can go up north of 5%. And so those have higher regulatory burdens that we have to comply with. And so therefore, there's higher percentage fees charged from the payment processors, but we make more money on those. So those are richer opportunities for agencies to share in. When you talk about Convesio Convert, you know, again, we do a 20% rev share across most of our products at Convesio, but on Convert and hosting, you get a flat 20% rev share fee there. But with Convert, the really awesome thing with that is you can sell a number of additional services that, our team will help you implement, or you can tool up internally in your agency. But think of this as a full automation workflow, email, pop-ups, all sorts of abandoned cart sequences can be created. The agents or the customer is going to need someone to implement that. So there's work for hire to be done here that you can charge for to implement, monitor, and manage these Convesio Convert campaigns. And what's great about this is our team is very hands-on with support. So you as the agency get basically unlimited support with all of these products that you might need. And we're there to help you every step of the way. So there's additional work you can charge to implement these campaigns, whether it's writing or creative or just setting up the automations. So we think that the Convert product actually will unlock additional service revenue for agencies as well. And you compare this to something like Klaviyo. So we are far less expensive than a Klaviyo type of product might be. So the win-win there is we can typically save your end customer a large fee that they might be paying Klaviyo, so they have more money to spend with you to work on optimizing your campaigns. So we really feel like this is a win-win combination for a lot of agencies to take to their clients.
So I just wanted to comment on the fact that you've actually kind of nailed the product market fit in terms, from a hosting perspective. So you are a platform which is scalable, so beautifully suited for those B2C e-commerce stores that are doing a lot of volume, right? So obviously, the more transactions, the larger the volume, the the more revenue you get. But it's also quite interesting what you were talking about, the regulated industry, and I suppose that was a conscious sort of strategy. You know, even 2 years ago, I think I remembered seeing a landing page on your site about some regulated industries. Did you already have in mind at that point that that would tie in nicely with a future paid product and the fact that these type of industry, you see that higher cost for payment?
Yes, absolutely. And, this is one of the things, Lawrence, that we tend to gravitate towards places. I mean, this is just a sort of the part of who Convesio is, but when you're in a really competitive landscape like hosting, we gravitate towards the niches that we can compete and win in. And one of those early on was a lot of hosting companies won't touch cannabis, they won't touch nutraceuticals. They won't touch dispensaries in the cannabis space, or perhaps even full on companies that sell marijuana that are in states where it's been legalized. um, these folks all sort of needed a home because they were being deplatformed.
Mm.
And so those are areas where we've always been open to sort of taking those types of businesses on. And I think that that has played really nicely into the direction we're going with payments. We're still not what I'd call a good fit for all high risk regulated industries, but we've taken special steps to get approved to do nutraceuticals, right, with our payment processor. So we've gone through additional compliance processes to do that. We still can't do things like firearms. That's another big, that's a big vertical we work in. But because of the way we've architected our payments platform, we're really agnostic on the processor on the back end. So, what our plans are is to bring on processors who are firearms friendly, processors who are cannabis friendly. Although cannabis is so changing so quickly in
Mm.
the US with laws and everything that maybe it won't be as big of an issue in a year or two from now as it is now. But right now, it's extremely hard for those businesses to process anything with credit cards. So yes, it kind of there was some thoughtfulness on that because we saw that those are underserved, harder markets. And this is probably another business insight. It's like if you're willing to step up and do the work no one else wants to do, you can
Mm.
compete and you can charge higher prices. It's not uncommon for people that are in the nutraceuticals business to be paying 8% for their credit card processing. That's 8% is you're talking about a lot of money a month if you're doing $1 million a month in revenue. So, yeah,
So I think one takeaway for me today is to look up what nutraceutical means, and maybe try some, whatever that is. Uh,
that's any of your vitamins, health
right. Okay.
supplements. Yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't know. I'm going to tell my kids that today to have their nutraceuticals
that's right.
with
Tell
the
them that.
with
Yes.
with the breakfast. Now, in our space, in the WordPress space, there are tons of agencies. There are tons of WooCommerce agencies. Um, what does it take for, let's say, a smaller agency to get to a point where they can attract that business, that WooCommerce store that is generating $250,000 worth of sales each month? Because this whole proposition looks really, really good for them, but they might have to step up, or maybe even psychologically need to, you know,
Yes.
change their mindset a little bit.
Yes, this is really important. And by the way, we didn't really talk about this, but we introduced these new plans called Express plans. And Express is actually a new product offering that we have, and we partnered with Automatic on this. So we use the WP Cloud infrastructure. So we have Express plans, we have business plans, and enterprise plans.
Mm.
So the Express plans are very, very attractive to agencies with a portfolio of sites that are maybe not, they're maybe, we'll call them more in the box, a little more cookie cutter, your standard sites. Business and enterprise plans at Convesio are when you're scaling up with really large LMSs, millions of dollars a month, hundreds of thousands of orders a month, or, many 10, 50,000 orders a month on WooCommerce. So we start to graduate into those plans. So we have this spectrum. So we've made it easier for people, agencies to start at Convesio with a lower price, but still really awesome product. And then combine that with they've got maybe one or two sites that need the business and core and enterprise plans. So we've tried to make the barrier from a financial perspective of doing business with us much lower. Now, with that said, you've got to do some soul searching here because
Mm.
I find most agencies that don't touch e-commerce are frightened. They're very scared of it because it's a lot of complexity that they're not used to. It's shipping, it's inventory, it's taxes, it's security. Is this customer going to call me on a Saturday morning when they're doing a sale and bother me on the weekend because their site's down or slow or whatever, right? And so the I would say e-commerce is it is a more complicated beast There are more plugins, more third-party tools to integrate with. There are also ramifications if things go down when a store
Mm.
is offline, especially one doing 300K a month in revenue. You have to be able to be there like very quickly when it happens. Now, if you're an agency and you're going to do that yourself, it is scary and daunting. And man, like you got to really think hard about that, whether it's worth it for you to do it. But this is where Convesio comes in. So we are on Slack with you 24/7. We monitor all of your sites 24/7 in 1 minute intervals. If a site has a hiccup, our team is there to address it. So we give you a safety net. And there's nothing in e-commerce we really haven't seen at this point. So with WooCommerce, we give you a safety net and a level of confidence that your store, your client store, is running, it's monitored, it's managed, it's secure. And if you have a problem that comes up, we are there and we have your back. And so that's what I think it takes, is that type of company having your back for to convince agencies this is really worth it to go into this new, more complicated space of e-commerce.
Okay, no, that's super interesting, and I think there'll be a lot of soul searching amongst even our own agencies when they learn about, well, the challenges, but also the opportunities. Um, so moving on to actually getting on board with your partner program. So I had a set of questions, but maybe we can just cover this with you explaining, firstly, who do you like to work with? And suppose that you've explained a little bit of this just now, but also what does the onboarding process look like, and maybe a little bit more about how you support agency
Sure.
partners.
Well, I think one of the things that agencies really like the most with us, and it's a moment of like unexpected delight, is we do bring them into our Slack organization, and they have a
Mm.
range of 10 to 20 different individuals in that Slack channel that they can rely on for all sorts of things: performance optimization, security problems, support, you name it, migrations, use case questions. We get hit up with everything. So, one of the biggest benefits of an agency partnering with Convesio, in my opinion, is the availability of the experts that we bring to them to tackle whatever problem that they may have with their sites and their portfolio. So that's like, I can't, I don't know any other company, honestly, that does what we do. We feel like an extension of agencies' teams. So it feels like, if you're a one man show or a 5-person agency, imagine like getting a membership for like, $150 a month, right? Where you can host your first 10 sites or something, which is one of our express package plans. And you get access to a Slack, a private Slack, completely confidential and secure, with a team of people that their whole job is just to help you become more successful. And that is a powerful value prop, in my opinion. So once you come on board with us, we do all the migrations for you. This is another thing. Agencies come just like, man, do I have to migrate all my sites? No, our team we prefer to do all the migrations. We plan them out with you. Understand, are these like downtime sensitive sites where we need to do it after hours? We need to do a maintenance window. You can imagine when you migrate a really large e-commerce site, we have to do these. We rehearse the migration first. Okay, then we pick a low time. We do very maintenance. We do syncing of stuff. It's very coordinated so that there is a prescribed maintenance window and process that we go through. And I think we're excellent at these go live processes. But sometimes we get agencies and they're like, oh, I just have a bunch of like local service companies and they're 9 to 5. They don't care when it's, as long as it's not more than 15 minutes of downtime, like we can do it anytime. So we work with you to understand what type of clients are we migrating to our platform for you. And, that's all coordinated through Slack with an onboarding manager. And then really everything is done within Slack, all of your support, conversations, whatever it is that you need.
I really like the analogy that you made, describing what you offer in terms of knowledge and insight as, one of those membership uh, type sites where you're signing up to a guru, right? To the consultant and also tiers as well. Um, Conscious of time, we only got about 5 minutes left, and I think it'd be great to close off with some thoughts about WordPress and where WordPressing is going. I think we're all kind of trying to figure that one out, but also in terms of Convesio. So thinking in 3 years' time, where do you think WordPress will be, and where will Convesio be?
Sure. Well, we're working on some very exciting new AI features, which are going to come out very soon, possibly in our platform as soon as next week, for some early access requests. But I think AI is going to play a really big part in what we're doing. And we're really focusing, running a store is very manual. That is the one thing I can tell you. It's like the amount of energy and effort in the WordPress space, and we all hate the fact that we have to do plugin updates constantly and security updates, and we have to test the plugin updates if you're doing them right. It's very labor intensive to run a store on WordPress. We really feel like AI is going to radically transform that, and a lot of that stuff can be done via AI agents, and we're working on some really cool stuff around that. I think that there's also this notion of AI is going to empower people to create on the web more than they ever have before. And I feel like if we think about where I want Convesio to be in the future, is I want us to have a rich set of AI features across all of our products: host, convert, and pay. Um, I think we'll be more diversified and not just WordPress, but also running
Mhm.
open source stacks. We will make it really easy for you to get insights and deploy changes to your performance and your server performance and your infrastructure and all that type of stuff. So I see us going in sort of that direction in the future, and I see us embracing a lot more of the like headless checkout technology, becoming more autonomous across commerce platforms, and really being a layer of tools and services that
Mhm.
people can layer on top of whatever store they're running. With that said, as far as what's going to happen with WordPress, I don't know. This is something I think about a lot because I did a little project where I vibe coded a little plugin for myself, and it was so easy to do. And it makes me wonder, we've talked offline about this, like it makes me wonder what the future of the plugin space is like when people can vibe code any little feature in a plugin eventually. And maybe, I know there's going to be naysayers out there that say it's not ready and it's a security risk and all these things, but it's going to get there. Okay.
Mhm.
And when it gets there to the point where you're like, you know what, I need this new feature, you're not going to go looking to purchase plugins that have, 100 features in them for the one you want. I think you're going to start to realize that one feature that I need or want, I might be able to vibe code as a small little utility. And so I feel like these are going to represent fundamental shifts in the WordPress space, and so it has me concerned slightly about what that's going to do to the economy of WordPress. So I don't really know. We're going to be here. We're going to have a front row seat to it. But I think people need to start thinking about how is AI going to impact the ecosystem as a whole over the next 2 to 5 years.
I'm glad that the WordPress project is starting to invest time and resources in AI. I think they quite recently formed a team, and I think
Right.
they have everyone in a room somewhere in New York as well. They're not even
Correct.
remote, to be able to read, to work closely. So one angle on this, from my perspective, is that because of open source and how WordPress, is effectively more of an operating system, more of a framework, we may be better positioned than a proprietary technology that isn't as open, that can't be um, adapted, tweaked, and mashed together as easily as WordPress. I'm just trying to envisage Wix pivoting its sort of platform structure and its roadmap and all that to be able to accommodate all the changes that AI is going to bring to the market. And I think that maybe would be a good position for WordPress to be in because of that.
I agree with you on that. And I actually have long thought like WordPress could be the operating system people vibe code on, right? Where it's like,
Mm,
I have the framework of a scaffolding, if you will, for a site based on WordPress. And then I vibe code or I AI code or whatever,
mm,
all the features that I need. And maybe I've got some utilities and tools. And the foundation is really WordPress and you build upon that. Um, I don't know. I've got my mind changes on this weekly, but the one thing that I will agree with you on is I actually don't see why anyone would do the vendor lock in of a proprietary system anymore. I
mm,
can't see, as I think about it, why would anyone want to build on a vendor locked in platform?
yeah,
Um, now, yes, today, there's a lot of reasons today. In
yeah,
the future, I don't know. I can't see it. Like today, Squarespace can build beautiful websites. I can't build a website with AI from a design perspective that's as good as what you can get on Squarespace. It's beautiful. It's great. And Squarespace does a lot of other really, really awesome stuff. But I believe eventually AI is going to be able to design better than what we can do with these tools that are producing beautiful websites. That's a gap today in the AI space is the
mm,
design stuff is just not quite there. You have to do a lot of coaxing to get decent output. But from a development perspective and, modifying sites and changing features and doing small little patch type things, it's very much there in my opinion today. And so I agree with you. I think that's going to be a very interesting thing unless these platforms do something that is so unique that is going to draw
mm.
people to them. I just don't see the Wixes and of the world going to be. I'm not sure they're going to win the AI battle based on their closed architecture.
Okay, and just to conclude, where can people learn a little bit more about Convesio and your partner program, and even connect
The
with you?
fastest, best way to get in touch with us is to just come to convesio.com and chat with us. We have a little chat widget. You can talk to anyone. We will happily tell you more about all of our plans and projects and products and partner programs and all that. But just come chat with us and, we'll get you an invite into Slack and, help you crush whatever your objectives are. So, yeah, just reach out at our website.
Well, thank you, Tom. You've been super generous with your time, and as always, extremely interesting. So this was episode one of our Excerpt Talks,
All
and I
right.
think we've
Episode one.
I think we've got a really good one. So thank you again for your time.
Thanks, Lawrence. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
No worries.